All right, so get this. We're tackling a question today that might kind of flip your perspective on, well, spirituality. We're going to dive into why Buddhists don't believe in God.
Interesting.
Yeah, and to guide us, we've got this awesome YouTube video from the channel Buddha's Wisdom. They're all about, exploring Buddhism, pushing those boundaries, making you think,
Yeah, I've seen their stuff. Always thought-provoking.
For sure. And this one especially, it jumps right into that classic image of God we often grow up with, the all-powerful creator.
Right. The one who, made the universe and everything.
Yeah, exactly. But what I found super interesting is that Buddha wasn't really hung up on that whole origin story,
Where did we come from? How did it all begin? Is there a God pulling the strings?
Exactly. He was more focused on dealing with human suffering, right here, right now, not the cosmic stuff.
And the video really digs into that Buddha's silence when people asked about God or creation. He didn't just dodge the question. He basically said those questions were irrelevant to achieving liberation.
Whoa, that's bold. So, he's implying maybe we're looking on the wrong place for answers.
Maybe. Makes you think, right? Could focusing on these external forces actually distract us from understanding ourselves and our own suffering? What do you think, listener?
That's a great point. And it leads right into, this core idea of self-empowerment in Buddhism, right?
Absolutely. It's like Buddhism is saying, hey, you've got everything you need inside to break free from suffering. No need to wait around for a divine intervention.
Totally. It's like we're all carrying this wellspring of wisdom and compassion.
The video even uses this cool analogy of a superhero hiding inside us, just waiting to be unleashed.
I love that. Such a powerful image. Really flips the script on how we usually think about spirituality.
Right. Instead of relying on an external savior, it's about taking radical personal responsibility for our own happiness and spiritual growth.
You own it, you create it, basically, that's where karma comes in, right?
Definitely. Karma, that intricate dance of cause and effect. It's like every action we take creates ripples that shape our future experiences.
Okay, gotta admit, karma can be a bit of a mind bender, but what's so cool is it doesn't need some divine judge keeping score.
Nope, no cosmic spreadsheet. It's more about understanding that we're constantly shaping our own reality through every thought, word, and action.
So we're weaving this tapestry, and the choices we make today will affect the pattern tomorrow.
Exactly. And speaking of mind-bending ideas, that brings us to non-self, or anatta, as it's called in Pali.
Oh yeah, this one's a real head-scratcher. It's the idea that everything, even our sense of self, is always changing.
Right, nothing stays the same, not even me as a solid entity. It's like trying to hold on to water. The harder you grasp, the more it slips away.
So then, clinging to this idea of a fixed me is actually what causes a lot of suffering.
According to Buddhism, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we can grasp that everything is impermanent, including ourselves, it can be, incredibly liberating.
Okay, but how do we even begin to understand that? I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive, right?
The video suggests that meditation and mindfulness are key to experiencing this truth directly.
Ah, okay. So it's not just about sitting on a cushion and, emptying your mind.
No, not at all. It's more about training the mind to see things clearly, to notice the flow of thoughts, feelings, but not get swept away by them.
It's like taking a step back from the drama. Right. Just observing things as they are.
Yeah, exactly. Like the video says, it's like a spiritual treasure hunt where the prize is self-discovery.
Interesting. And not about blindly accepting dogma or beliefs. It's about experiencing truth firsthand through observation and practice, a more active approach.
Right, and the video actually brings up some fascinating historical examples to illustrate this point. Remember the story of Saruda, one of Buddha's disciples?
Oh yeah, wasn't that the one where someone was challenging him about Buddhists not believing in God?
Exactly, and Saruda basically said, look, even if a creator God exists, it doesn't diminish the power of the Buddhist path.
Yeah.
We follow Buddha's teachings because we've seen firsthand how they lead to peace and liberation.
So he's saying it's about direct experience, not blind faith. Pretty powerful stuff.
Definitely. And then there's the Kalama Sutta, where Buddha encounters these folks who are super skeptical about everything.
Oh yeah, the Kalama Sutta. That one really struck me. What was it Buddha said again? Something about not blindly trusting even his own teachings.
Yes. He tells them to question everything, even his words, and to test the truth for themselves.
So don't just take his word for it.
Yeah. He even gives them specific criteria for evaluating teachings, emphasizing personal understanding and experience over blind acceptance.
Wow. He actually said, don't go by reports, legends, traditions, scripture, logical conjecture. When you know for yourselves that certain things are unwholesome, then give them up. And when you know for yourselves that certain things are wholesome, then accept and follow them.
Exactly. It's all about taking ownership of your spiritual journey.
That's a huge message. So it's not about denying God. It's more like saying, hey, look inward. The answers are there.
It really challenges our usual assumptions about spirituality, doesn't it? What resonates with you the most so far, listener?
For me, it's how Buddhism shifts the focus away from relying on a higher power. It puts the responsibility, well, squarely on our own shoulders. It's empowering, but also kind of daunting, you know?
It's definitely a call to action.
Yeah.
But the liberating part is that it suggests we actually have the power to change our own lives, to create our own happiness and freedom.
And it all starts with understanding ourselves and the nature of reality, which, speaking of, there's so much more to unpack here.
Absolutely. We've only just scratched the surface. We'll dive deeper into specific Buddhist teachings and practices in the next part of our deep dive.
And we'll explore how those ideas can apply to our everyday lives. Stay tuned, folks. There's a lot more to discover.
Much more to come. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Welcome back. You know, listening to all this, it makes me wonder if maybe the whole God question is kind of beside the point in Buddhism.
Yeah, like it's not about proving or disproving God's existence. It's more about recognizing that we all suffer and we all have the potential to free ourselves from that suffering.
It's like Buddhism empowers us to take control, right? We're not just like puppets of fate. We have agency. We can choose how we respond to life's challenges.
And that idea of personal agency is really at the heart of the Four Noble Truths, which the video breaks down really well.
Right, the Four Noble Truths. Those are kind of foundational to Buddhism, right?
Absolutely. The first truth is that suffering is a part of life. Like, it's just a universal experience.
Okay, so Buddhism doesn't shy away from that reality.
No, it meets it head on. And then the second truth gets to the root of that suffering. It says that suffering comes from clinging from our attachment to things, our desires, even our sense of self.
So like, we're always grasping for something that's ultimately temporary.
Exactly. And that grasping is what causes us pain. But here's the good news. There's a third truth that says suffering can end, that liberation is possible.
Okay, so there's hope, but how do we get there?
That's where the fourth truth comes in. It's the Eightfold Path, which is essentially a roadmap to ending suffering.
So it's like a set of guidelines for living a life that leads to liberation.
Precisely. It includes practices like mindfulness, right speech, right action. It's about cultivating wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline.
You know, when you put it that way, it sounds very practical, not so mystical or out there.
Right. It's about making conscious choices in each moment, paying attention to our thoughts and actions, aligning ourselves with our values.
And the video emphasizes that Buddhism isn't just a belief system, it's a way of life. It's a path of continuous self-discovery.
It's not about waiting for some sudden enlightenment to strike. It's about engaging in daily practices that help us grow.
Practices like meditation. The video really highlights how important that is in the Buddhist tradition.
Definitely. Meditation's like a mental gym. It helps us train our minds, develop focus, clarity, and equanimity.
So it's not just about sitting there trying to blank out your thoughts.
No, it's more about becoming aware of those thoughts, observing them without judgment, and learning to let them go.
Like creating space between ourselves and our thoughts, right?
Exactly. And the video mentions that even a few minutes of meditation each day can make a huge difference. It can reduce stress, improve focus, even boost compassion and empathy.
I'm curious, do you have a personal meditation practice?
I do, yeah. It's been so helpful for me. It's like having this inner refuge, a place of peace and stillness that I can access no matter what's happening around me.
That's beautiful. And it speaks to how Buddhism offers practical tools for dealing with, well, just being human, you know?
Absolutely. It's not about escaping reality, but about engaging with it in a more skillful and compassionate way.
Which brings us back to that non-self idea. How does meditation relate to that?
Great question. Through meditation, we can actually experience the impermanence of everything, including our sense of self. We see how thoughts, feelings, even that me feeling, are constantly arising and passing away.
And that can be liberating.
Incredibly. Because when we see that nothing is permanent, we can loosen our grip on that need to control things.
It's like letting go of the illusion of a fixed self.
Yes. And that letting go brings freedom and peace. It allows us to be more present, more open to experience.
And to respond to challenges with wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting from fear or ego.
Exactly. It's amazing how all these Buddhist principles are so interconnected.
Like threads in a tapestry, they all weave together to create a larger picture.
A picture of what it means to be human and how to live a life that's truly meaningful and fulfilling.
And it all comes back to that initial question, why Buddhists don't believe in God. It's not about denying God's existence. It's about recognizing that the path to liberation lies within us.
It's about waking up to the truth of our own existence and finding freedom through self-awareness and compassion.
And the beauty of it is, it doesn't require blind faith. It invites us to be active participants in our own spiritual journey.
It's not about easy answers. It's about deep introspection, cultivating mindfulness and compassion, and finding our own unique path to enlightenment.
It's a call to action, to roll up our sleeves and do the work of self-discovery.
And that work is ongoing. There's no finish line. It's about embracing the journey of continuous growth and transformation.
Embracing the constant change that is life itself.
And that journey, according to Buddhism, doesn't depend on a god or any external force. It begins and ends with ourselves.
That's a powerful message, even for those of us who aren't Buddhists. The emphasis on self-reliance, critical thinking, and direct experience is so relevant in today's world.
Especially with all the information and external influences bombarding us constantly. It's like Buddhism is giving us the tools to navigate that complexity and find our own inner compass.
It's about cultivating discernment, questioning everything, arriving at our own understanding of truth through personal experience.
And that's something we can all benefit from, regardless of our background or beliefs.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into this whole Buddhism and God thing, what are some key takeaways? What should our listener really walk away with?
I think the biggest one for me is how Buddhism totally flips the script on how we usually think about spirituality.
It's not about looking outward for some higher power to solve our problems, right?
Exactly. It's about turning inward, realizing that the potential for liberation, for happiness, it's already within us.
It's like we've got the power all along, we just got to tap into it. Kind of like that superhero analogy we were talking about, right?
Exactly. It's about unleashing that inner strength, that wisdom that's always been there. And I think this deep dive has really shown that Buddhism isn't just some vague philosophy. It's got practical tools, Practices like meditation and mindfulness that can actually help us deal with everyday life.
And not just the good stuff either, right? The video really emphasized how Buddhism views suffering, not as something to be avoided, but as a chance to grow.
Exactly. By facing it head on, by understanding where it comes from, we can actually start to free ourselves from its grip. And what's really cool is that this whole perspective doesn't require you to believe in anything supernatural or follow strict dogma.
It's about direct experience, right? Cultivating qualities like compassion and wisdom through practice.
Yeah. Taking responsibility for our own happiness, realizing we have the power to shape our own lives. Which reminds me, the video touched on this idea that Buddhism isn't about reaching some permanent blissful state where you never feel anything negative.
So it's not about denying or suppressing difficult emotions.
No, it's about learning to relate to them differently, meeting those challenges with more, equanimity.
So instead of freaking out or trying to push those feelings away, we can just acknowledge them, understand them, and let them pass.
Yeah, like riding a wave, It's about being present through it all. And this deep dive has really highlighted how, for Buddhists, enlightenment isn't some far-off goal. It's about the journey itself. It's about showing up for each moment with intention and awareness.
Yeah, and that journey doesn't mean you have to quit your job and live in a monastery, right? You can integrate those principles into your everyday life.
Absolutely. Whether you're at work, with family, wherever, you can bring that same mindfulness, that compassion to everything you do. And I think that's super empowering. It means we don't have to wait for something outside of ourselves to give our lives meaning. We can create that meaning right here, right now.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave our listeners with a question, something I've been thinking about. If the path to liberation really is within us, what steps can we take, today, to start tapping into that?
That's a great question. And I think it's a really personal one, something we each need to explore for ourselves. But, maybe it's starting a small meditation practice, even just a few minutes a day. Or maybe it's just being more mindful throughout the day, paying attention to your breath, noticing moments of joy or gratitude.
Yeah, savoring those little things.
Exactly. Whatever it is, I encourage you, listener, to embrace that journey of self-discovery. Remember, the wisdom, the strength you're seeking, it's already within you. It's just waiting to be uncovered.
So keep questioning, keep exploring, keep diving deep. And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.